I love going back and revisiting absolute gems of the past, with this one in particular being one of my absolute favourites and childhood memories. Lara Croft Tomb Raider Legend. This was by far that game that I had in the past with my friend called Jake that we used to both just obsess over and play all the time. We loved the movies Lara Croft with Angelina Jolie, and well, this was basically that, but we could physically go ahead and play it. With the amazing voice acting that goes on throughout this game, and Lara's incredibly perky personality, this game was and will always be one to remember in my eyes. It was actually way ahead of its time in terms of level and mission design, the way the game played out. The story was actually quite interesting for a game back then, and as I mentioned, the voice acting from all the characters were just fantastic. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a retrospective on this game, going through what the story was about, going through what was good about the game and what made it so memorable to me, and what made it so memorable to you guys. And if that's the case, leave it down below in the comments. Did you play this game in the past? And if you did, what did you think of it? Leave a like on today's video. Let's try and reach 100 likes on today's video for these retrospective ones. That'd be really interesting to see how many we do get on today's video. Comment down below, as I mentioned, if you've ever played the Tomb Raider Legend game or the original Tomb Raider series. There was actually 3 games that came out. There was Tomb Raider Legend, Tomb Raider Anniversary, and Tomb Raider Underworld. But leave all your comments down below. And definitely have a read through and reply to as many as I possibly can. But without further ado, let's dive straight into this retrospective. The story of Tomb Raider Legend revolves around Lara's parents predominantly and their journey and love for history. Their research throughout their entirety of their lives and love for historical artifacts and historical places. Lara's father is looking for something, a sword named Excalibur, and he's looking for a place beyond this realm, and a place where potentially other kings and people of the past are. However, the sword in question was owned by many of the different kings in the past. Millennia ago, there were many of these swords that were scattered around and given to these different kings and historical figures, and one of the main ones in the story was King Arthur. Lara's parents died, and allowing Lara to inherit the entirety of the Croft estate. Lara's mother and father's life work revolved around investigating the potential existence of a place called Avalon, a place beyond this world and a new realm, as I'd already mentioned, and this was Lara's father's life work. When Lara grew older and more curious, she too had this thought, going digging in Peru with her friend Amanda and others, running into something that just didn't really seem human, and from that day on always believing that Amanda was dead and died to this thing. Tomb Raider Legend takes place through many different parts of the world, starting off in the likes of Bolivia, then travelling over to Peru, then going over to Japan, and you can tell the developers had a fantastic time creating the start of this mission, going to England, Kazakhstan, Ghana, Nepal, and then back to Bolivia at the end. And all of the locations are just absolutely stunning. For a game this old and that came out for over a decade ago, I think the atmosphere is absolutely amazing. The sounds in this game, the mechanics also hold up really well, the climbing is fun, and everything is simple, but it works so well. For example, when we're in Bolivia and the game first starts, Lara jumps into the water, and she tells the player how beautiful the water is, how cool and crisp the water is, how almost allowing the player to imagine it for yourself. The witty banter between Zip, Lara and Alistair is just funny, and it really adds to the atmosphere and the ambience when playing through the game. When you're going into more of a serious section of the game, sometimes there's a bit of banter back and forward between the characters, and it just lightens the mood, and it's really fun to play through. And you can tell they're all very close, which is nice. Zip being the tech wizard helping Lara with research and obviously all of her equipment, with Alistair being the historian, the one that helps Lara fact checking and things along those lines. And of course that just leaves Lara the biggest badass going. I've said this already in this video, but this game was way ahead of its time in terms of gameplay mechanics, but also from a puzzle perspective. Modern games puzzles could really take note from a game like Tomb Raider Legend, because moving around the map isn't just go here, go there, solve this puzzle, which is usually find this fuse or something, put it into the machine and then press a button, go here, go here. No, it's here's a room, now figure out how to get from where you are right now all the way up there to the very end of the room. Along the way there could be different pathways and things that you can veer off to collect different collectibles, which are known as shields. We have bronze, silver and gold shields in this game, and you can go around collecting them all around the map. There's usually upwards from 8 to 10 bronzes, 5 or 6 silvers, and I think there's 1 gold throughout the entirety, but they're really well hidden, and you've really got to be creative and veer off and really search all the crevices and corners of these maps to try and 100% this game. It's a really good idea, and I really enjoy it as well. Throughout you have puzzles as well that actually need you to use your brain, with puzzles being throughout the game, not just traversing from one room to the end of the room going to the next, but also actually solving puzzles to go through after you've then traversed through this room and to go through the next door. It's a really well thought out game that really needs you to use your brain. Games that make you think are the best games, as there are so many modern games such as the Callisto Protocol, which is my biggest critique at this moment, that just present you with a corridor, you walk to the end, you see a cutscene, and then you just rinse and repeat whilst doing a couple of fuse puzzles here and there. However, Tomb Raider requires you to look around, use your equipment to find your way through the map, and even fail a few times to really get a gist of how things work. A great one being this: I climb from one pole to another, and I jump onto this drawbridge thing, where it then falls down, and if I don't swing back in time, then I have to basically drop to the floor and do it all over again. It's just little things like this that require your quick reaction time, you to really pay attention when playing this game, because if you're not paying attention, then you could be in for a pretty tough road, especially on those harder difficulties. The Callisto Protocol, I could probably hit it on the hardest difficulty, not really concentrate too much on the game, and just probably whiz and speed through it. With Tomb Raider Legend, you need to be switched on with what's going on, else you're never going to get from the start to the end of that room. But this isn't all. This game takes you all across the world, but it also gives you the opportunity to go and explore Lara's home, Croft Manor. This, by the way, is my favourite part of this game, because not many games do this. Many games like to jump into their games and their story, and it's very full on throughout the entirety of the way. There's never a chance where you can kind of just take a bit of a step back, chill out, and kind of just do what you want. And Tomb Raider allows the player to do this by going into Croft Manor and exploring this mansion, this huge mansion, which, by the way, is massive. And it's just so much fun to do. An example, when you first get into Croft Manor, you don't have any of Lara's equipment. You don't have anything on you at all. You have to go round and find it. You can find the zip line from Zip's little office. You can find the 2 dual-wielded pistols in a hatch in Lara's room. You can even go into the wardrobe and change outfits that you unlock throughout the campaign. Not only this, throughout the entirety of the mansion, there are so many of these bronze, silver and gold shields that you can go around and find. There's a huge ass swimming pool that you can go in and do different puzzles to find these shields, to do different bits. And without the likes of the grapple hook, without the likes of the pistols, you can't do these puzzles until you've found them all. There's a gym with loads of different climbing equipment, which allows you to be creative in terms of trying to get these shields that are all scattered around the room. This game was absolutely top draw, and as I said, way ahead of its time, and games now could really take inspiration and take a bit of a hint from Tomb Raider Legend and how well these developers made this game. There's an entire library there as well, with a secret room and a puzzle with loads of different bits here and there. Like, when I say this game was my childhood, you can tell I'm a bit passionate about how good it really is, but it actually is, in my opinion, one of the best games in a trilogy that we've had in that era. Obviously, we think of the likes of different Call of Duty trilogies, Gears of War, Halo trilogies as the big ones, but Lara Croft also had an original trilogy, and the original trilogy was pretty good. The first one, of course, being the best one, but it's another one to think about. Tomb Raider Legend doesn't just do the free roam side of things, or the story, or the amazing visuals nicely, but it also does one thing that a lot of other games do terribly, the Callisto Protocol. That is boss fights. Tomb Raider has a series of boss fights that, again, rather than just shooting the baddie, you need to do a series of things to beat them. Now, granted, the bosses are quite easy in this game, but I mean, they're not meant to be difficult. We fight the likes of someone called Rutland throughout the game, and his health regenerates using a portion of the Excalibur sword that we find. So we need to pull the 4 structures around the room down in order to prevent him from regenerating his health. And then we kill him after that. The thing that attacked us in the Peru and quote-unquote killed Amanda, well, we couldn't defeat it until we turn on a series of switches, and then we have to push a series of tester coils into these electricity bolts and stuff, and then that's how you do it. So you have to really think about it. The snake, my personal favourite, which is in England, and it's where we find another portion of the sword. We're near King Arthur's tomb. We have to then pull a series of switches using the grapple hook whilst shooting a couple of gongs around the room to get the snake's attention, and then we can lower these cages onto its head, and eventually this massive snake is dead. The boss fights are just fun, and boss fights should be fun. Yes, they can be difficult if you turn the difficulty up, but most of all, you want to have a fun experience when fighting a boss, right? And Tomb Raider Legend does a fantastic job of that. Anyway, going back to the story slightly, Amanda finds an artifact when they were researching in Peru, and she pulls it out when this thing was essentially trying to chase after them and kill all of her friends. Amanda tames this thing, and it's sort of indented within her within this artifact she wears around her neck. And from that point onwards from Peru, Lara was trying to find out and carry on her father's research, as we mentioned, and figure out what happened to her mother when she was exploring Nepal with her. Lara's mother and Lara began to hear voices, basically saying don't touch the sword, but then another voice in the background stating pull out the sword. Lara's goal for the game was to figure out what happened on that day, to figure out what happened to her mother, and ultimately along the way she found more and more individual pieces of Excalibur, the sword which was owned by all of the kings. She would travel across the world in search of these parts from all of the places we mentioned earlier, until at the very end of the game we were able to reform the sword again using a brooch that was actually gifted to Lara's mother by her father that he found along his expeditions. This was the final piece of the sword to bring it together, and that's when Lara hears the voices that she heard as a child. These voices were her mother and her on the other side. Lara would tell her essentially to not touch the sword and to walk away, but then Amanda next to her says pull out the sword, and this is exactly what Lara's mother does. This is where Amanda was stating that Avalon is real, and Lara's father was in fact correct. And it was at this point that Lara came out with one of the most badass lines in gaming. Take a listen to this.
All these years I blamed myself, and it was you! You killed her!
Killed her? She's not dead! She went where I was supposed to go, where you could have gone!
Makes sense right this second, or I swear I'll execute you where you stand!
I told you to pull out the sword, I told you!
Where is my mother?
Avalon! It's not a myth, don't you get it? You'll never understand. I'm wasting my breath.
From this moment, your every breath is a gift from me.
How sick is this woman? But in this retrospective, I just want to bring it up again. They don't make video games like this anymore. Even the new Tomb Raider games aren't quite like this. And maybe it's just nostalgia, me loving this game from way back when and playing through it as a child with my friends and just absolutely loving the movies and everything about Lara Croft in general. But I have to stress to you that if you've never played this game before, I urge you to go back and play it. It's like £2 on the Xbox store right now, and it's honestly one of the absolute Xbox classics. Look, if you're not a fan of playing older games, then I completely get it, but this one is a classic, and if you've not already played it, go and do it. You can finish the game in like 3 or 4 hours. It's not a long game at all, but the experience of just how things were back then is just well worth your time. But guys, that is going to be it for today's video. That is a retrospective on Tomb Raider Legend all the way back when. This game, as I mentioned already, I've said it so many times, one of my favourites of all time, one of my absolute nostalgic classics, and I'll never forget this game. I'm going to play through it again, I think. I'm going to try and 100% this game just because I love it, and I just want another excuse to go back and play it, to be fair. But there are 2 other games in this trilogy, as I already mentioned. If you guys want a retrospective on Lara Croft Anniversary and also Underworld, then let me know down below in the comments. It will carry on the story and go into Avalon, and it's really, really interesting actually how the story progresses and how Lara evolves and changes as a character and stuff like that. So let me know down below in the comments if you want to follow on from this, or ultimately if you want another retrospective of another game or another trilogy of a game, then let me know down below in the comments. But thanks for watching, everyone. I really do appreciate it. If you did, go ahead and enjoy today's video. Leave a like, it'd be very much appreciated. 100 likes on today's video is the goal, and I think we're going to smash it, to be fair. Subscribe if you guys are brand new for plenty more content coming on new games, story explained, also retrospectives like this one. And yeah, it's going to be a fun time this year on the channel. We're going to get more of an upload schedule going, because I think at the moment we don't really have one, and I think that's what I'm missing out on. So we're going to try our best to do that as well. But have a great rest of the day, everyone. We'll speak to you all next time.